Good evening. It is 5:32, and I call this February 19th, 2026 special meeting of the Cupertino City Council to order. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Fruin.
Here.
Councilmember Rohan.
Here.
Councilmember Wong.
Here.
Vice Mayor Chow.
Here.
Mayor Moore.
Here.
And Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members, as a reminder, Councilmember Wong is participating remotely this evening. Councilmember Wong, are you in the lobby of the Omni Barton Creek Hotel in Austin, Texas this evening?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. And Councilmember Wong, are there any individuals over the age of 18 with you? And has anyone indicated to you that they intend to make public comment or address the council?
No one has today.
Okay, thank you. And throughout this evening, I'll rely on you to notify me if any member of the public wishes to speak from your location. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll begin with item 1A, a study session on the subject of the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office contract renewal. Madam City Manager, do we have a presentation?
Yes, Mayor, we have a presentation, and I am not sure where Jonathan is.
Should I go look for him?
Let me just ping him real quick to make sure he's on his way. So while we wait for our acting director, Jonathan Orozco, I will just introduce this item briefly. So Jonathan will present once he gets here briefly on, and then we will turn it over to council for questions and discussion. But at a high level, Cupertino contracts with the Santa Clara County for law enforcement services. And we've had a long-term contract, which expired 2 years ago, and we were able to get an extension for 2 years. That extension, hence the contract, is expiring June 30th of this year, and we've been engaging with the Sheriff's Office in the county about a year before the contract is set to expire. We have received a proposal at the end of December, on December 31st, from the Sheriff's Office. That represents a very large hike. And what's important to note is also it's not a one-time increase in cost. It's a completely different methodology and an ongoing expense to the city. So this is, our first a public study session for council and members of the public to receive this information and have a discussion. And with that, I will turn it over to our acting admin service director, Jonathan Orozco, to run through some brief slides, and we will then take questions. Thank you.
Apologies. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Moore and council members. I have not had a chance to finish updating the slides, so I'll just verbally present, and we can include the slides at a later date. Shortly, let me provide some background concerning the contract. So, as you know, Cupertino, Saratoga, and Los Altos Hills jointly contract with sheriffs for public safety services. Originally, there was a 10-year contract from fiscal year 2013-14 to fiscal year 2022-2023. Subsequently, there was a 2-year extension from 23-24 to, from 24-25 to 25-26. Currently, in June 2025, city managers began meeting with Sheriff's Office regarding the renewal of the contract and its terms. On December 31st, 2025, the city or the contract cities received the renewal cost proposals. With this proposed increase, the city saw a 36% increase year over year compared to 25-26. In Saratoga and Los Altos Hills saw comparable increases. This represents a structural pricing changes, not a one-time adjustment as the city manager had just stated. Now, what's driving these increases? First off is their methodology and how they're allocating the records and investigative services. That's the bulk of it, about 60% of that increase. Secondly, it's the reduction in productive hours. So instead of seeing 2080, you're seeing a fraction of that, 16 and some change. Additionally, there was an increase in salary and benefits cost from the previous years. And in addition to that, there's an expanded inclusion of indirect and county-wide allocations or overhead. So what has been the city's response? Ongoing negotiations with the sheriff's office. The contract agencies put together a committee, West Valley Ad Hoc, or a ad hoc committee comprised of the mayors and city managers. Additionally, and staff continues to engage with the sheriff's office and county executive teams to seek greater transparency and potential mitigation options. Currently, we will be there's ongoing meetings. So, for instance, we'll be meeting with sheriffs tomorrow to discuss further detail of the methodology used in those allocations. Next week, the county or the city managers will be meeting with the county executives to discuss further. Next steps, continue financial analysis and negotiations, seek clarity on the methodology and assumptions, incorporate updates into the budget projections, and that we will be seeing in the mid-year update in March 3rd, 2020, in our next meeting, and then return to council with further discussion points. This concludes my presentation, and we're available to answer any questions or hear council's feedback.
Thank you, Jonathan. And apologies that the slides weren't up, but thank you, Jonathan, for running through the information. I just want to add just underscore this 36% hike. It's not what it is. This is just what we're seeing now. But the concern is that we're also hearing that county may have a structural deficit in their own budget. And that kind of puts a lot of uncertainty for us in future years as well. So that's also something we're kind of dealing with.
Thank you. So first, I want to thank staff for this discussion and the status of our contract with the Sheriff's Office. This is a serious and urgent situation for Cupertino as well as for Saratoga and Los Altos Hills, who are facing the same challenges. As you're aware, we formed an ad hoc committee with these cities, and we are aligned on several fundamental points. First, the proposed cost increases are unacceptable, and they are based on a new methodology that was not discussed during nearly 2 years of extension negotiations, and it was introduced in the final hours of negotiations. I believe it was introduced December 31st at 8 p.m. was when the city received this.
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay. And we began asking, was it in June?
Yes, we got organized and reached out to the sheriff's office starting June of 2025. We even presented a draft term sheet, had regular meetings scheduled with them.
And did they give a reason why they weren't able to produce the new contract sooner?
No specific reason. I know that they were really trying to work with the county administration, but it sounded like they needed to wait for some information from the county administration and then their finance teams as well.
Okay. So I'm going to open this up for council further clarifying questions. I'll go in the order of Councilmember Wong, Councilmember Fruin, Councilmember Mohan, and the Vice Mayor. It's Councilmember Wong. Do you have any clarifying questions?
I have a short question. Really, it looks like the number of hours are going down. The cost per hour is going up, and investigative services is much more expensive in terms of the hours being allocated. Is that your general belief as well, based on the data that's been shown here? And is it sorry, that question was directed at Jonathan.
The methodology in which they're updating those numbers in terms of not necessarily lower costs, is just the productive hours per sworn officer has decreased to account for sick days, vacation, and other administrative leaves. In addition to that, they've increased the hourly rate to reflect recent changes in their negotiated rates and benefits.
Based on this, I mean, at what point do we hit a breaking point where it would make sense to actually have our own city-run police department?
From my understanding, city and the other agencies are currently exploring those options.
Okay, it's okay if we don't have the numbers. It's just we probably should take a look to see what the break-even point is. If the cost continue to move in this direction, we may have.
That level of analysis has not been completed. However, we have been comparing what the cost is to continue to contract with the county versus what it would be for the city to possibly have its own police department, or as a joint effort with other cities, whether it's Saratoga and Los Altos Hills, or contracting with a neighboring agency. But again, those discussions have not been. It's still in its infancy, so it hasn't been quite vetted.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Wong, if I can just add on to what Jonathan said, I think the what we're dealing with is the lack of time to really look into the methodology or comparative analysis, meaningful comparative analysis. So I think that's why we don't have a lot of this information just yet, but we really do need some time to look into this. It's just such a shift in terms of what we've been used to for so many years to what the new methodology looks like. And yeah, so we're struggling with the short timing on this.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Fruin.
Thank you, Mayor. I would echo a lot of what Councilmember Wong just mentioned. I think that that's sort of the right overall financial way to look at it. At what point does it cost us, more to have the sheriff versus having our own police force or working with our neighbors, et cetera? So I'm glad that we're at least looking at those alternatives and at the potential for some sort of joint powers. I think that might be useful considering our size. In addition to that, I've spoken with a couple of our supervisors on the County Board of Supervisors, and they've all been talking about the potential for some sort of phase-in to this cost. Has that gone anywhere in your discussions, and what are you hearing?
So our first meeting with the county executive is coming up next week. So we'll know more about that. I haven't officially heard anything. But, again, my concern stays the same. Like, phased approach still means we're going to get to that number. If not now, then sometime very near in the future. But I'll keep council posted when I have more information on that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Mohan.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. My question is, have you had an initial meeting with the Sheriff's Office?
Yes, we've had several meetings with the Sheriff's Office.
And what is the feedback you're getting from them?
So we've we've received the proposal, like we mentioned, December 31st. And since then, we've kind of been trying to get more details, more granular information on how the methodology came about and what some of the numbers that are in the proposal means. There's several kind of parallel tracks going on. So our finance directors and folks from each of the cities are also meeting with the finance team with the county to kind of do a little bit more deeper dive into the numbers. But yeah, we've had several meetings with the sheriff's office, and we'll continue that after we have the meeting with the county executive next week as well.
Okay. One concern I have is that this contract expires in a few months, and the county sort of finalizes its budget March, April, that time frame. So it's almost like, do we have another choice? Can we get something, an alternative or another option in terms of for the next year?
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. We do need time. And I'm hoping, our conversation next week with the county executive, we can, if it's not obvious yet, we can express that we definitely need more time to look into this. I definitely know, and I think we all understand we're pressed for time. And that once the contract ends, there is no option. So I'll know more from that conversation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Okay, just to clarify, so there are 15 cities in the county, and only Saratoga, Los Altos Hills, and Saratoga have this contract with county. All the other 12 cities have their own city police, municipal police, right?
The 12 cities in the county, you mean?
Yeah, the other 12 cities all have their own municipal police.
Most of them, but there may be one or two that are going in together with another city as well.
You mean Monte Sereno is going with Los Gatos?
That's
but
correct.
The others all have their own.
Yes.
Okay, and all 3 cities are in District 5. Margaret Apicogas.
Yes.
So the other 4 board supervisors might not care.
It's possible, but to answer your question, yes, D5 is our district for the 3 cities.
Yeah, I think like Councilmember Foran said, when I talked to Margaret, she did express the desire that a phased-in approach would be better. I think she said that in a Spotlight article also, but she's 1 out of 5. So now I want to get some records straight. So we had a 10-year contract, which ends in June 2024. And the county told us they won't extend for another 10 years. They would only do a 2-year extension. I'm guessing end of 2023.
So as
What
far as
reasons they gave at the time that they would only do a 2-year extension? Do we know?
So from my recollection, from the discussions, there was a conversation that there will need to be another contract in place after this old contract expires. We also knew that they were not ready to talk about a 10-year contract extension at that point, because they were needing to make some changes in the methodology. We did not know what that meant at the time, so we asked for an extension, and that's the 2-year extension that we are in now.
Yeah, but before the 2-year extension, they didn't tell us what their new methodology they are considering at all. They just know, so we know we will negotiate a new contract, but there has been no information on even the amount of, because if we had known back in 2020, end of 2023, if we had known that 2-year extension would come 30% increase would come after 2-year extension, we would have time to explore other options. But the county did not give any indication that the increase would be as drastic as they are proposing now, right? They never told us.
I'm going to answer your question in 2 parts. I think 1, you're right. If we knew that we're looking at this level of increase, we would have acted earlier, explored options, talked to the county, et cetera, et cetera. So we did not have an indication that this is what we're going to be receiving as a proposal. However, we did know cost of policing is going up everywhere. We do know that the county sheriff deputies did receive a raise, so we were aware of that, but we did not know the extent of the overhead costs that we are looking at now.
Okay, so between the end of 2023, when we decided we signed the 2-year extension, until June of 2025, has there been any other communication with the county about this?
Not about the cost increase.
So the county did not give the cities any information during that time, okay? And then in June 2025, did the county reach out and give us any indication what kind of new methodology they are considering, or the city reached out and my understanding, the city haven't gotten an answer until December 31st, 8 p.m.
That's correct.
So what kind of communication the city has gotten from the county since June 2025 till December 31st?
Yeah, like I said, I think the sheriff's office, they've been cooperating. They've joined our meetings, but they did not have the full methodology or the breakdown as well, and they needed to wait for that information. So during our meetings, we've kind of been going over if there's any new information, or if there's an opportunity to do another extension so cities would have more time. As council and mayor at the time had sent a letter to the county supervisor. So those are the communications we've had. But really,
so the meetings since June 2025 was only between the sheriff and the city, not the county executive who makes the decision on this new modeling.
correct.
So the city has not ever had any chance to communicate with the people who decided on making this new model.
Yes, we've had meetings with their broader
unfair.
team, their administrative team, and their finance teams, but we have not met with the county executive. That's
And
coming
they
up
have
next week.
not given us any hint at all what kind of new model they are considering.
Yes,
And
other than
until
the
today, the new model, they have not even give us details on how that model is formed.
Yes, the only information we received before we actually saw a proposal is that they believe the cost will go up. So we knew the cost will go up, but we did not have any indication on what the methodology looks like and what that methodology equates to in terms of the increase, which is drastic.
Okay. So the city did write a formal letter to the county to request that we would like another 1 or 2 year extension so that we can negotiate and absorb the increase. And was there any response from the county?
Not officially, if I recall, but I don't believe that they entertained our request for an extension.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Mohan, for the information. That's a very good point. They likely would finalize their budget in March, and they didn't tell us the new increase until December 31st. That leaves us literally no time. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I do want to mention a couple of other items in the timeline. HR 1 was passed July 4th, 2024. So that was after you had requested the new sheriff's contract. Okay. And then the County of Santa Clara, and this is from their website, says that they operate the second largest public hospital system in California, which receives a majority of its funding from the federal government through Medicare and Medicaid. Federal funding cuts put critical county healthcare and safety net services at risk. In response to the impacts posed by HR 1, the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors held a special meeting August 7th where the board voted unanimously to place a temporary sales tax increase on the ballot for consideration by the voters at the special election being held on November 4th. If approved, the general sales tax measure, which has the 50% plus one hurdle, would temporarily increase the current county sales tax figure by 5/8 of a cent, or 0.625. Generating $330 million in annual revenue. So on their website, they are pointing to the healthcare system needing the funding. So I just want to make sure that that's in the record. And then they had even increased services to their clinics during the meantime after you had requested to have this sheriff's contract. And then now now they then submitted to the city on New Year's Eve the new contract after they had achieved this Measure A sales tax. I think that's an important series of events and how they even frame this, because it's a general tax, so it's supposed to be going to all of the departments. And this is quite a surprise to see this 36% increase happening with regards to our sheriffs. And I think, well, let's go to public comment here and get some other Councilmember Wong, is your hand raised?
No, I'm in concurrence with you. Let's go to public comment. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move to public comment. Madam City Clerk, are there any members of the public with their hands raised?
Mayor, I'm not seeing any requests to speak in person at this time, but I do see a few hands raised virtually.
Okay.
First up, we have San Rao, followed by Peggy Griffin. Welcome, San.
Good evening, Mayor Moore and council members. Firstly, I want to say, I think in this day and age with AI tools, we need to be better prepared than we were. So I'm surprised that we're sort of floundering for the data. I also think it's not productive to play the blame game with the county. I think we need to look forward. The projection is what it is. And so let's look at what the options are for the city. Let's look at what each of you can do working with the county. The county is in its own state of budget shortfall. And let's look at the competitive data and what it tells us, because we do have police departments in a variety of models across Sunnyvale, Los Altos, Santa Clara, Sunnyvale, and a few others. So I did take a look at this data a little bit. And what my read of this data tells me is that you're actually getting a pretty good deal from the county. If I look at the data from Los Altos and the data from Santa Clara, San Jose, I think they're actually paying more than what the proposed model is from the county. And so you may need to really kind of make sure you run your numbers and you do this iteratively. I recommend considering including citizens in your committee or subcommittee. That hasn't been done. That's a miss. It's unfortunate. You guys definitely are the bright brains there, but you've got plenty of brains to tap into in the city. So I encourage you to have a subcommittee that includes the volunteers from the city, and you should look at this iteratively, quickly, and then really look at what are the hard calls you need to make here. Because as I see it, I don't think you're going to get a better deal trying to do this on your own if you look at the data from the independent departments. Just my math here shows me that you're basically paying $312 per resident per resident for law enforcement. And the numbers from these other cities running their own departments runs from about 550 to 865. So they're paying way more than you are, especially Los Altos. And so you really need to take a hard look at this. You're not going to solve this by looking backward. You're not going to solve this by playing the blame game. Let's just be clear about what's the options here. If you can extend it, that's great. If you can't, raising revenues through taxes is not the answer. You're going to have to make hard calls to start making hard cuts. And that's got to come from staffing, because that's where the majority of our pay goes. And that includes healthcare and pensions. So you got to start looking at non-critical roles where we pay for healthcare and pension, replacing them with contract workforce. So I'll send the comments through written comments, so you have the data that I have. But that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, San. Next, we have Peggy Griffin. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening, Mayor Moore, Vice Mayor Chow, council members and staff. I don't have any answers. I understand the seriousness of this, and I appreciate all the effort that is being made to try and figure it out. I do agree with San that raising taxes is going to be a really hard call. People are struggling already. And I don't like the idea of cuts, so I'm hoping for a miracle, but I know it's not there. So please do what you can to postpone until we have time to do something. Maybe we can limp along for a year if they won't give us 2 years extension. Anyway, whatever you can do, and I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. As a reminder, anyone wishing to speak on this item shall submit a request to speak card in Community Hall or raise their hand virtually before this next speaker ends their time, which will close the public comment period. Next up, we have Lisa Warren. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I came in late to this discussion, and I learned some things prior to this meeting and not done my homework, but it's a huge increase. As we all know, it's disappointing that it's coming at such a late date. And as we all know, and I'm hearing this $320 per resident. What happens? How is the contract written? As we build housing and more people move in and we have more residents, do they increase $320 per resident? Is there language in there for them to cover? I mean, and this is any place in the state that is increasing population by a lot, if they can, because they're told to. You know, is there some clause in there that says this is what it is now, but every 100 people that come into the city, it's going to be this much more? Which, if they're building in the expectation of how many new residents we will have, then we'll be overpaying until those people move in. So I would ask those questions if you haven't already, or at least understand what the intent is. I personally know someone very well in the Sunnyvale Public Safety, which they include. Each of those people there is trained for fire and police. It's a really, really great situation, and it's very well done. I don't know if that's something to consider, because I don't know what the cost is for fire and if that's going to go up or when that contract is there. And as we build into the foothills where there's fire danger and new houses being built, yada, yada. So again, I'm sorry I'm ignorant about the whole details, but those are just questions that pop up in my head. And I agree. I don't know anyone that has the appetite for any more higher taxes. I don't. Because a lot of people are already feeling like they're not getting what they're paying for. And that's not me, and just what I hear. And that's all my babbling for this. Thank you. And I'm so sorry you have to do this. It just seems wrong in so many different ways, the way it was handled by the county, and maybe, I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Mayor, that concludes the request to speak on this item.
All right, thank you. I do want to mention a little bit about some county data, because I think that might help. So our county Board of Supervisors purchased 3 bankrupt hospitals a few years ago, bringing the total to 4 hospitals and 15 clinics. And the budget for our county is about 55% on healthcare. If you look at various other counties, you'll see that their healthcare costs percentage is around 25%, and the state mandate is for the counties to provide for the poor and indigent. So I think that's how some of the other counties are able to have their healthcare budget be much smaller, is because they have not expanded in the way that Santa Clara County did. Also with that, the county receives at least 12% of our property taxes. So for Cupertino, our property tax, 7% is what we get back, and that amounts to $35 million. So the county, at a minimum, is receiving $60 million from Cupertino, from property tax. And now with the increase of the sales tax, they'll be getting around 11 million there. And when there were activists who came to talk to us about Measure A, and they told us that there were 400 visits from Cupertino residents to the hospital network last year. That's 400 out of over 58,000 individuals. So if we are giving the county now over $70 million, that more than covers the healthcare cost of these individuals. So when it's being framed as though we're subsidized and should be paying for the overhead, I think that that's a way of telling a story, but I don't think it's telling the full story, because we give so much to the county, and they're looking at one slice and providing that information in a certain way that supports increasing the cost on Cupertino. So I would like to know if there's some way we can find out what happens to the other $70 million, because on top of that, we also have been giving them about $18.6 million for the sheriffs. So now we're up to a 98, almost about $100 million that's going to the counties. So I think that's it is important to look back and see what's happened. We've also, since we are going to be looking at a potential ballot measure to raise taxes, we just had Measure A pass, and now we're having to look to our residents to potentially pass another tax just so that we can cover this increase. And that's a huge thing to be asking. So it is important to know the whole picture for what's happening with what we provide for the county. And you have to get into the weeds. It's really important. So are there any other questions from the members of the council? Do we have a hand raised? Hold on. Okay, Vice Mayor Chow, followed by Councilmember Mohan.
Sorry, I'll do that later. I need to share my screen, so let me set it up.
Okay. Okay. Councilmember Mohan.
Just a clarification, are we still doing public comments? Are we finished?
Oh, we completed public comment. You can make a motion if you like, or if you have some further questions or comments you'd like to make.
Yeah, I do have some comments to make. I'm not sure there's much sense in trying to explain the county situation. They bought the hospitals, and we've been reading in the papers every day that their budget situation is pretty dire. And it's also fairly obvious that some of their budget problems are being offloaded in areas where they can, and obviously the sheriff's costs that the city is paying for is one of them. So I don't know where we are going from here, what the next step is, but we should probably be looking into the services that the sheriff provides now and see if we can reduce their services. And I don't know if you want to go into details, but I was just looking at some of their charts, and there, for example, there's a traffic sergeant, and we are paying $500,000 for the sergeant, and the other two cities are 0. So what does a traffic sergeant do, and why is he only servicing us? That was one question. And then, this is just a suggestion, and I'm sure you will get to these in your discussions. In some cities, the crossing guards, for example, are paid for by the police department. I know San Jose's crossing guards are paid by the city of San Jose. Is that something we can transfer or offload from our budget to the sheriff? And I'm not sure how much the crossing guards cost us. Jonathan, do you have that number handy? Or?
Not at this time.
I can. This crossing guards is about $400,000 a year.
400,000. Okay.
Yeah, and it's currently a third-party contractor, but the city is paying for it.
No. Okay. So those are two examples that I was thinking of where we have some leeway to negotiate and reduce our costs. Just the two items would bring our costs down by $1 million. And if they're not willing to go down on their contract amount, then maybe we should reduce the services we get from them and do a cost-benefit analysis. How, are we getting enough bang for our buck?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Councilmember Mohan, you're thinking the same thoughts that we are. Currently, we're looking at every possible angle to bring the cost and the service level to a level that we can afford. So we will be looking at line by line, and questioning what we're getting and the need. Obviously, we'll have a conversation. We're also looking at, as we mentioned earlier, alternative models for policing, right? Because I know one of the members of the public remarked that maybe we are getting a good deal, so to speak, but I will say, there's obviously pros and cons of both models, right? A contract versus an in-house. So those are all things that we're looking into.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to mention, thank you, Councilmember Mohan, for looking into the details about what services we are receiving. We also have the SROs, the resource officers, which is a service that is not at the other cities. So that is another potential. I do have a motion. Let's see if I can get a second. That we direct the city manager to look into any cost-saving measures, that would include the ones we described, with the current contract and the feasibility of creating a JPA for law enforcement with adjacent cities, with the timeline for steps that would need to be taken, models for implementation, and cost estimates. And this would be while the ad hoc committee continues to meet.
Second.
Okay, thank you. So next, I'm still seeing Vice Mayor. Okay, Vice Mayor.
Okay, thank you. First, just to clarify, the cost for crossing guard is not a part of the sheriff contract cost, right?
That is correct.
It's a separate budget item, but SRO is, which
Correct.
is how much?
It's, you have the exact, it's just under $800,000.
Okay, and let me share my screen, I think. So this table is in the presentation, from the presentation. That's in agenda, second attachment, the presentation. The new methodology and the old methodology. I just want to clarify. The old methodology is 2025 to 2026 rate. It's not our rate from last year. It's if we extend the contract, this would be including the cost of any cost of increase, that's an annual cost of increase, right?
What this table reflects is if you were to take the existing contract or the fiscal year 25-26 activity and apply the new methodology to the current fiscal year, you would see an increase of approximately $10 million across all agencies, or $6.3 million specific to Cupertino.
So if we only extend the contract, we will be paying about $19 million. And, right?
Had it
That's-
been the existing CPI plus 2, you would assume about a 5% increase to the $18.9 million.
So that 18.9 includes CPI plus 0.2, the annual increase.
Compared to last year, which is
Yeah.
the 24-25
Okay.
rates.
And then with the new methodology, we would need to come out with $6.2 million extra for this year in our budget.
Yes, the new methodology is assuming that they had applied the methodology that they're recommending for 26-27. Had they applied it for 25-26, you would have seen, or this current year, we would have paid $25.2 million for an increase of $6.3 million.
Oh, this is 25-26, I see.
Correct.
So if it were for 26-27, it will be even more
Correct.
than that, then more than 25. Okay. Now, I think one member of the public says the per capita cost for Cupertino is lower, but I got the ChatGPT to calculate for me to create this table, add a column for population, and then divide the new per capita cost versus old per capita cost. We are paying more than, at least for the, it was more comparable in the older one, but the new per capita cost, Cupertino is paying a lot more per person. So I just want to clarify that we are not paying less. And also that this is a chart that I built, I think, based on, I think it was mayor's research the data to compare the county budget between 2015 and 2025. In 10 years, the percentage of spending in every category, the orange is 2025 and blue is 2015. The percentage of the budget spent on every category, including public safety, has dropped quite significantly in 10 years, while the cost for health costs has increased a lot. So somehow the county has been cutting their own public safety dollars, and now they want to put that cost on us. It's kind of, they are hoping we will subsidize their spending. I want to make the point, it's not, the reason we need to look at the past record history of negotiation is because we are in a negotiation. So if we can make a strong case that the county really caught us off guard by delaying, and did not share anything about their new methodology until December 21st at 8 p.m., we wouldn't be in this very tight situation. Therefore, it would justify that we request for an extension or phased-in model. So it's important for us to set a record on that. I think another case is, I sent in the question earlier about, I think I had a conversation about some of the largest increase is from the caseload calculation for the records division. And there is 22%, I think, of the caseload is for Cupertino. It's higher than the other cities. So my question is, what do they consider as a case? Whether a traffic ticket is a case, or a case could be an actual robbery. Some case might take a very short time, some case might take a long time. And maybe the percentage in Cupertino is higher, but maybe those are small cases. For example, we have parents who request for the sheriff to patrol traffic for school when there are a lot of violations. So when they would come in and issue a lot of tickets, are they considered one case? So can we have more information on those?
I think, Vice Mayor, as I mentioned, we are asking all of these questions.
Yeah.
So I will keep you updated, and in terms of our meeting with the county executive next week, we will raise these concerns. The city's team will be meeting, and the ad hoc committee will continue to meet on this. So we'll get answers to some of these if we can.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Can we call the question?
Not at this time. So, Vice Mayor, would you please put up that table that showed the unincorporated county? Because it's my understanding that the sheriffs are covered by the general taxes that the county receives if you were to live in the unincorporated county. And that, I believe that number that you had was about something over $6 million. So I would like to have that clarified, because that would mean that we are, all of us, subsidizing unincorporated county. And I think that's an important piece of information. Yeah, so it looks like about $6.6 million. So has that been verified?
We will clarify that, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. And so prior to this year, the annual increases were about, say, 5% is what we were experiencing, and now we've jumped up to the 36. Okay. So if we have no further questions or comments, Madam City Clerk, will you please conduct the roll call vote? Or
Certainly. Councilmember Furman?
Aye.
Councilmember Mohan?
Aye.
Councilmember Wong?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Moore?
aye.
The motion carries unanimously.
So we've reached the end of the special meeting agenda. So now this meeting is adjourned, and we will start back up at 6:45. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. It is 6:45. Are we ready with video?
Video is ready, Mayor.
Excellent. It's 6:45, and I call this regular meeting of the Cupertino City Council, the February 19th, 2026 regular meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Madam City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Furman?
Here.
Councilmember Mohan?
Here.
Councilmember Wong?
Here.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Here.
Mayor Moore?
Here.
And Mayor and Vice Mayor and council members, as a reminder, Councilmember Wong is participating remotely this evening. Councilmember Wong, are you in the lobby of the Omni Barton Creek Hotel in Austin, Texas this evening?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. And Councilmember Wong, are there any individuals over the age of 18 with you? And has anyone indicated to you that they intend to make public comment or address the council?
None that I've seen today.
Thank you. I'll rely on you to notify me if any member of the public wishes to speak from your location this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we do not have a closed session report, is that correct?
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. No ceremonial items. Madam City Clerk, do we have any postponements and orders of the day?
No postponements, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Madam City Clerk, do you feel I need to read the statement of values at this time?
Statement of, yes, please.
Okay. The city strongly denounces hate speech and does not tolerate disruptive behavior in our meetings. Cupertino prides itself on the rich diversity of our residents. We're committed to creating a culture of belonging where members of our diverse community feel included, safe, and respected. And with that, we'll move on to oral communications. Madam City Clerk.
Yes, this portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter within the jurisdiction of the council and not on the agenda for discussion. Oral communication shall be limited to 30 minutes. Additional speakers wishing to comment on non-agenda items may be given time to speak at the end of the agenda after the city manager's report. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes. As necessary, the chair may further limit the time allowed to individual speakers or reschedule remaining comments to the end of the meeting on a first-come, first-heard basis with priority given to students. In most cases, state law will prohibit the council from discussing or making any decisions with respect to a matter not listed on the agenda. A council member may, however, briefly respond to statements made or questions posed by speakers. A council member may ask a question for clarification, provide a reference for factual information, request staff to report back concerning a matter, or request that an item be added to a future city council agenda in response to public comment. And Mayor, this evening, we do have some requests to speak in person. So Mayor, at this time, I'm seeing 3 requests to speak in Community Hall, and at this time, I'm seeing 1 request to speak virtually. Members of the public wishing to speak regarding an item shall submit a request to speak card in person or raise their hand virtually within the first 9 minutes of the start of the public comment or before public comment is closed, whichever comes first. So we will start in Community Hall with Jennifer Griffin, followed by Jean Bedord, followed by Belinda Huntout. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hello, City Council. It's nice to see you all on a Thursday. Very different. Hi, I'm Jennifer Griffin, and I wrote 2 letters to you all concerning some issues in Cupertino that I find very, very compelling and essentially getting worse. One of them was the proliferation of the SB 330 projects. I was quite shocked to see that the Panera Bread and Voyager Coffee project was coming in March. We are now at 7 SB 330s along Stevens Creek Boulevard. From the west side, the Staples project, down to the east side, which I understand is going to be one near Cupertino High School. I believe that Nancy Skinner was thinking that she was doing a good thing when she wrote SB 330 several years ago, but I think that she got it wrong. Maybe she couldn't anticipate the retail killer that this bill has become, and it is a problem for Cupertino. We are killing our retail, active retail, on Stevens Creek Boulevard because it's not the developer's fault. It is irresponsible legislators like Nancy Skinner who have not thought things out. And I think that we need to have some pushback or a discussion. We've talked about this for a long time, ever since the Staples project went in, and then we've had the one down by Valco. We've had multiple ones. I missed the one that was the retail buildings that were being converted. But I find it shocking, and I hate to lose the retail. My grandmother lived in Cupertino since 1950. My great-aunt lived in Rancho Rinconada since 1950. They came to Cupertino to shop. It had everything. Now, once this retail is killed, we're going to become a bedroom community for Los Altos, Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, San Jose, Saratoga. This is where we're going. We have to do something about this. Also, my husband noticed that Voyager Coffee is closed already. Have we found a home for this refugee retail in Cupertino and Panera Bread. We went to the Santa Clara Panera Bread last Saturday to meet friends. Busy, active. This is at Scott's and El Camino. Are we killing our Panera Bread? Where are we going to put it? We don't want to lose it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next, we have Jean Bedord, followed by Belinda. Welcome, Jean.
Good evening. The chamber is empty. Anyway, my name is Jean Bedord, and I am a Cupertino resident. I am speaking tonight to file a complaint against the Planning Commission Chair, Tracy Colasacharan. I am deeply disturbed by her letter to a sheriff's deputy that is included in the written communications for this meeting. This raises serious ethical and governance concerns. The letter states that it was written as a resident, but it was sent from the chair's official city email. Furthermore, it was signed using her official title, thus misleading sheriff staff who received the letter. Furthermore, city staff was not aware of the letter. This was a use of public resources for personal advocacy, a clear ethical violation. The chair is an appointee to an advisory body, not a staff member. Furthermore, she was advocating for her personal policy, which had been rejected by the rest of the Planning Commission at their prior meeting. Therefore, she was not authorized to speak for the body on this matter. I urge the city attorney to review this matter and provide guidance regarding appropriate communications regarding commission actions, as well as her use of official mail accounts, titles, and disclaimer. Thank you for your attention to this serious matter.
Thank you, Jean. Next, we have Belinda. Welcome, Belinda.
I'm gonna get the overhead.
Video, are you able to put the document camera on? Okay. Do you have something on the projector?
It's there, I can see it up here.
Oh, okay. So it's working?
It's not working on your screen.
Video, it's not showing on the other screen.
It does.
There we go. Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
And you'll want to speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry,
and you might
yes.
be able to move it closer to you if you need to. Okay.
And good evening, City Council members and Mayor Moore. It's good to see you all. My name is Belinda. I sort of am homeless, so I don't know where I'm from right now, what my residence is. I'm in San Jose, but I was here in Cupertino for about 3 years, homeless. And I just want to request, I'm just trying to challenge some Santa Clara County sheriff deputies who I witnessed publicly humiliating a homeless woman who they obviously caught stealing, but at the same time, they made some very unsavory comments, and I think that they should publicly apologize to this woman, even if they can't find her. It's an act of healing for our communities, because right now I think there's a huge gap in the trust of the police and the community at large. And then the other thing, I don't have this timer here, I got plenty of time, cool. This one is kind of nervous right here, so let's just do a little switch here. This is a post I posted on LinkedIn. And the part I want to point out is I want to publicly request that John Sobrato adjust rent to affordability for the American people, to lead that, be the first one to do it so that we can alleviate some of the housing issues. I mean, there are so many people that are just $200 short. I mean, you're $200 really? I mean, you have to think about what we're doing. And I'm requesting him to reduce it. Just reduce rents across the board for the people. And that's all I had to say this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda. And Mayor, we'll move to the request to speak virtually. We have 3 hands raised. San Rao, followed by Lisa Warren, followed by Rachel Rose. Welcome, San.
Good evening, Mayor Moore, Vice Mayor Chow, and council members. I'm speaking on behalf of myself only, Planning Commissioner here, but speaking on behalf of myself only. I do want to comment as a resident on the matter of the Mary Avenue Villas hearing that occurred. The project on conferments of general plan for the vacation of public right-of-way, as informed to us by a resident member of the public during the public comments that has attended these meetings faithfully for over 25 years, seems to recall that such a vacation has occurred only thrice. That was the 3rd time in over 25 years, and the 2nd time in the history of Cupertino. And through the entire deliberation, I regret to say we had no questions except from myself and the new chair. And for a commission to not have any questions on a matter that has only occurred thrice in the history of San Jose and Cupertino over 25 years, as anecdotally reported, is not doing justice to the quasi-judicial nature of our role. Regardless of our positions, I think we owe the community an informative and due diligent hearing. I also want to comment, again, speaking as a resident on behalf of myself only, I also want to comment that the approach to separating the actual vacation process from the GP conferments handicapped us because we could not dive into the actual prerequisites that lead up to a vacation and whether that was justified. There was no evidence supplied that the vacation was justified, and I urge you to look at that when this comes up to you next meeting. Specifically, the findings in the resolution all hinged on the fact that this was a housing element project, and the project was named and detailed. And I wish to once again draw your attention to my past letters to you as a resident, that in order to have a single party negotiation, you first need to deem the property surplus exempt. Until the property is deemed surplus exempt, you cannot engage in single party negotiations. And only when you engage with a single party do you then have details of the project. So for findings for GP conferments to be solely based on the property details as defined by a single party, when it has yet to be vacated, it has yet to be deemed surplus, it has yet to be deemed surplus exempt, 8 CD notifications have not occurred, and I'm told the RFP occurred 3 years ago, and RFP cannot occur on right-of-way. An RFP has to occur after the property is deemed surplus. So there are procedural issues here, and I urge you to proceed cautiously in the interest of financial responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, San. Next, we have Lisa Warren. Welcome, Lisa.
Can you hear me yet?
We can hear you now.
Thank you. I just want to comment on some of the things that Jennifer brought up. In addition to the loss of the retail that we know about, there is a very large commercial piece of property with a very busy, large retail that a lot of people count on that is, we may lose, and it's Target. And I think everyone needs to be aware of that. It's on LoopNet. The last time it sold was in 2015 for nearly $50 million. So you can imagine who might be prospects for that property. and what that loss would be if it were to be lost as a target or something similar. And I know that parcels like that must have to be rezoned for housing, but it seems that that's not something that's frowned upon and sort of threatened with. So anyway, I just wanted to make that clear. And I'm also wondering whether Voyager is just relocating somewhere in the city or they're gone from Cupertino. I want to thank Belinda for her 2 subjects that she spoke of. I respect Belinda. She's got great knowledge and a calm way of sharing her frustrations. So I hope that you listen to what she said. And I have another comment that I think I would be best to email you all on, so I will do that instead. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Next, we have Rachel Rose. Welcome, Rachel. Oops.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Hi, thanks. I'm a Cupertino resident who lives right next to Mary Avenue, and I wanted to speak on the parking and community impact of moving ahead with the villas before the proposed right-of-way vacation is settled, because the proposed right-of-way vacation will directly affect public parking, circulation, and neighborhood access. Before vacating public land, the city must demonstrate that it is no longer needed for public use. In this case, the affected area currently serves real community needs, including parking during peak events and regular neighborhood use. Not to mention, there are still more housing and that has not even been built yet, based on a project that was supposed to have 2 underground levels of parking that the project just decided not to do. So we are going to have major shortages, not only now, but in the future, especially during high demand periods. So removing the right of way without a clear public necessity will exacerbate these impacts and permanently reduce community assets. The decision is irreversible. I urge the council to protect existing public parking and deny or delay the vacation unless a clear and well-supported public benefit is demonstrated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel. Mayor, there is another hand raised, but that hand was raised after the first 9 minutes of the public comment period.
All right. Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Next, we move on.
Mayor,
Yes.
I have a question for the city attorney.
Yes.
City attorney, so as a council member, for example, if I have a question on like Mary Avenue, should I send a question to another agency from my city account or my personal account? It doesn't matter, right? Because I have a question that's on an item that's on the agenda.
I don't think it makes a difference if you're sending a question in as a member of the city council, if you use your personal or your city email
So
account.
either whether I represent myself or the council, even if I'm speaking as myself, I should actually use my city account to be cleaner.
It's cleaner to use your personal account if you're speaking only on behalf of yourself. But I think you could use your city account, but if you did, in either case, you need to make it very clear that you're only speaking on behalf of yourself.
But whenever I'm sending something from my own account, I'm representing myself by default, right? Because I'm writing email all the time. I would not be able to specify that clearly.
I think if you said in your email,
because it's a city business, right? So this is addressing the public comment that somehow a planning commissioner should not be using her city email when representing herself.
I think
city business item that was on or is going to be on a planning commission agenda.
I think that the key is that in the communication, the official indicates that they are speaking on behalf of themselves alone, and that I think that we had even talked about in terms of the updating the rules, that they indicate that if the commission or the body has voted in the opposite, that they actually make that disclosure in their statement. And whether it's actually
Are you
on,
making a recommendation that whenever I write an email, I need to add a disclaimer I'm representing only myself? Because usually it's I represent myself unless I'm speaking as I'm representing the council.
Okay, I'm going to interject here. So could we have a procedural memo that addresses this, and it could go to all the commissioners and the city council, so that we can have some definitive guidance on this in the future moving forward, so that we
And
don't
I
have
have a
these
question
issues.
for the
it's a
city
very good idea,
manager
Mayor.
also.
Thank you.
Have we ever given any instruction to the commissioners that they are not allowed to contact a staff member, or they are not allowed to contact the sheriff's patrol division for a question they would like to seek information to inform them about a decision that will be on the planning commission agenda? Because I often do that as a council member if I want information from another agency. Are we not allowed to do that? Have we ever given any instruction on whether they are allowed or not?
I think, Councilmember, I just want to let you know, I did speak with the Planning Commission Chair about this
And I'm
afternoon.
not asking about this particular case.
No, I know. I am
Ever given,
Pardon,
because
through
we
the-
have
please,
plans that someone
Vice Mayor,
violated the rule.
Vice Mayor, please follow the rules of decorum, go through the chair.
Okay.
Thank you. We're not going to have
Thank
back
you.
and forth like this. So if we could have some guidance, and you can answer the further question about have these occurrences happened and how those will be handled in the future. I would like to see the item brought up regarding the sheriff conduct, if that could be looked into. I think that would help. So with that.
Through the mayor, if I might, Madam City Attorney, if in your memo you could also perhaps distinguish between other public agencies and contractors. In this case, the sheriff is a contractor.
Okay. Right. Thank you. So next we move on to the consent calendar. Madam City Clerk, have we had any items pulled from consent?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Would council wish to pull any items? I'm not hearing any. So, Madam City Clerk, are there any public comments for the consent calendar?
Mayor, I'm not seeing any request to speak on the consent calendar in Community Hall, and I do not see any request, no hands raised virtually, Mayor.
Okay. And are there members of the council who would like to comment on the consent calendar? If not, do I have a motion to move the consent calendar?
Motion to move, please.
I think that might have been Councilmember Wong.
Motion to move, please. I'll repeat.
First, and second by Councilmember Mohan. Okay. Thank you. Madam City Clerk, will you please conduct the roll call vote?
Councilmember Fruin?
Aye.
Councilmember Mohan?
Aye.
Councilmember Wong?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Moore?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you. Next, we have no public hearings, and so we move on to the action calendar. It is item 6 regarding the LRC assignments, Legislative Review Committee assignments, and the Legislative Platform Review and potential update. Madam City Manager, is there a presentation?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we do have a short presentation for you, and as staff is getting ready for that, in December, Council approved the ad hoc LRC subcommittee's recommendation to reestablish the Legislative Review Committee and adopt a 2026 legislative platform. Tonight, Council will have the opportunity to discuss and adopt that platform and officially reestablish the LRC through a resolution. To present this item, I would like to introduce Astrid Robles, our Senior Management Analyst in the City Manager's Office, and she has a short presentation tonight, and I will turn it over to her.
Thank you, City Manager. Can you all hear me? Okay. All right. So good evening, Mayor and Council. As City Manager mentioned, tonight I'm here to present on the Legislative Review Committee and the 2026 Legislative Platform. Hopefully my PowerPoint is showing. There we go. All right. Starting us off with a quick overview on the city's legislative journey throughout the years. The city first formalized its legislative process in 2018 and established both the Legislative Review Committee and the city's legislative platform. In 2023, council dissolved the LRC and instead of legislation was considered by the full council. In 2025, council established an ad hoc legislative subcommittee which discussed and recommended positions to the full council. During the last meeting of the 2025 legislative session in December, the subcommittee made a formal recommendation that the LRC be fully brought back along with the legislative platform, which council approved in December. To summarize the platform, the proposed platform outlines the city's legislative priorities and policy positions. Once adopted by council, its intention is to provide clear guidance to the LRC staff and the city's lobbyists. It allows the LRC to take positions on items that are consistent with the platform. For any items that are not clearly spelled out in that platform or are labeled as a monitor position, those items would need to return to the full council for consideration throughout the year. For the 2026 platform, we used the 2022 platform as a baseline, as that was the most recent version that we had. We made updates as summarized here on my slide, relating to issues on climate, housing, public safety, transportation, technology, and economic development. Regarding the LRC, the goal is for it to support timely, coordinated legislative engagement throughout the year, particularly when deadlines or legislative calendars do not align with regular council meetings. Formally reestablishing the LRC will create a standing Brown-acted committee made up of 2 council members. The mayor's proposed membership includes Vice Mayor Chow and Councilmember Wong, with Mayor Moore serving as an alternate. If approved tonight, staff will begin working under the adopted platform and coordinate closely with the city's lobbyists to schedule our first LRC meeting for the 2026 legislative session. With that, I am here for questions, along with Paul and Jason Gonzalez, who are available on Zoom. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the presentation. So we'll begin again with a question round, starting with Councilmember Wong, then Councilmember Fruin, Councilmember Mohan, Vice Mayor, and then myself. Councilmember Wong, do you have some questions on the presentation or the platform?
Yeah, just a question in general as to where the suggestions for the platform or planks were coming from, and how the information was solicited.
Thank you, Councilmember. So we started with the 2022 platform as a baseline, and looking at, I believe, attachment B shows you the red line versions. And so we met with staff along with our city lobbyists to go through and see areas that may need some updating. It was a bit outdated. It had some language about COVID, and it didn't have any mention of AI, and those were kind of the areas we were looking at. We also received other recommendations from our mayor, and that is what we have for you today. The intention tonight is to really give you all the opportunity to provide feedback on the platform, provide any direct changes you would like to see, and let us know how you want it to look like, since this is something that we want to be adopted by the full council.
Thank you. I think there's some positions here that might be controversial for some folks. That's why I want to make sure if we're trying to go for the least common denominator, or if we're trying to go for a different kind of approach. So I'll see what our fellow council members think.
Okay. So next is Councilmember Fruin.
Thank you. With respect to the edit, it'll be on page 3 of the red line under economic development and fiscal strategy. There is a section here that has been removed from the existing platform that would have allowed, or I should say it would otherwise read, the city embraces efforts to support legislation or obtain funding for economic development initiatives, including originally planning and implementation of regional transportation and traffic congestion relief projects. That last section, planning and implementation of regional transportation and traffic congestion relief projects, is proposed to be removed. And I'm wondering what the impetus for that is, and if there is at least a means for shifting to a monitor position for these, and in particular to retaining the planning for traffic congestion relief projects.
Thank you, Councilmember. I believe we took it out of that section. We wanted it to focus specifically on economic development and fiscal strategy, and we were kind of looking at areas that may have overlapped. We do have a transportation and infrastructure section in both the federal and state tables. And so if it's not clearly outlined in there, we can definitely add it.
Okay, can you point me to it so that I can?
Right. Let's see.
Is it intended to be 0.5, the edits to 0.5 under transportation and infrastructure rehabilitation?
Just want to make sure we're in the right state section. Yes. This one is specifically talking about the use of the cap and trade funds.
Mm-hmm.
And then also in general, in terms of traffic congestion, we wanted to make sure we added stuff about microtransit, which is the last section, item 15.
Yeah, I see that.
Would be
but yeah, those are the sections that are the most overlapping, and we can add some of that language that was removed from economic development just to make it a little bit more clear.
Okay, if that's possible, then I could support the platform the way that it's written. I'll just make the general comment that I'm not sure. I certainly understand the concern that you have about timelines. Having chaired the Legislative Action Committee at the Cities Association, it's somewhat frustrating that it meets on a basically monthly basis, and you're trying to align to the calendar in Sacramento in particular. I just have concerns about committing this particular activity to just 2 council members.
Noted, and we can definitely add that language into the last section under transportation.
Thank you.
I do want to point out that we have item 6 under transportation and infrastructure rehabilitation to monitor legislation and initiatives that address regional transportation congestion and transit agency budget deficits. So the thought there was to not muddy the waters between trying to help our local small businesses that can be in all different areas and then have that kind of combined in with transportation, since we already had this large transportation section here. So it's not that we're not looking at it. In fact, we've actually expanded it. Especially with the Silicon Valley Hopper situation. For instance, Sunnyvale has their business area has a free shuttle that they've added, which is through VIA, and they're looking at expanding down to the border, and that could be an opportunity for us. Having some assistance from VTA could be an opportunity as well. So there's microtransit starting up down in Morgan Hill and in Gilroy. You already have Palo Alto in place. So there's it really needs to be looked at comprehensively. So I see it as a huge topic there. So let me move on to Councilmember Mohan.
I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. And Vice Mayor?
Yeah. So for the resolution, it says that it repeals the previous repeal and replace the 23-026 and any other procedures. And so supposedly this resolution, the new one should specify the entire structure of LRC, but I do not find anywhere it says LRC would have 2 council members. That's not clearly specified. So it's supposed this will be a standing committee.
Hi, Vice Mayor. So Resolution 23-026 fully repealed and replaced resolution number from 2018. And so we had to, so basically we're just kind of going back a few rounds, and this resolution very much mirrors the one from 2018, which didn't specifically specify a lot of those details for the Legislative Review Committee. And I think that definitely it's up to council, right, how we want to structure that. But the resolution from 2018 didn't specify those details at that time. I believe after that was when council decided to make it a 2-person standing committee, which is what we had from 2019 up until like end of 2022. And so this one is mirrored to match the 2018 one closely.
Oh, I see. So yeah, it seems we have, yeah, okay. It seems that should be clarified in this resolution. And in terms of legislative priority, I see that we would monitor legislation regarding unfunded mandate, but that category was moved from a general category for local authority to under land use only. So I'm just wondering, I know that most of the unfunded mandate might be from land use legislation, but there are other unfunded mandates from social services or other, it could be in other legislation area. There are a lot of public safety one that's adopted and then they are not funded. I think when I attended the Superior Court Legislative Day, those judges complained about a lot of unfunded mandates they have to implement without any funding from the state. So,
so with these 2 sections,
should we limit that only to land use?
So our intention was to combine these 2 sections and not be, so land use and local authority being more all-encompassing of anything that will affect local control. It also came with, because we edited option number 1 from land use, it just kind of blended itself well into the other 2 under local authority. So it's just an all-encompassing, anything affecting local authority plus land use impacts would fall within that category.
I see. In that case, actually, for the 3 items that's currently under that category, it seems you can remove land use because there is another category for land use, actually. So all 3 items seems to fall more under local authority. Because if you put land use and local authority, it kind of feels like it's local authority limited to land use area.
Correct. So that this top table is for federal legislative priorities. So we can, you want to remove the title land use from that section?
Yeah, that seems to make sense because all 3 items are related to local authority, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's only for the federal. How about the state? So do we address that at the state level? Unfunded mandate from the state?
Yes, I believe we do, but I can try to find you that exact section.
Okay. You can find out later. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I do not have any questions. We can go for another round here or go to the public? It looks like we're ready to go to the public. Do we have any public comments, Madam City Clerk?
Yes, Mayor. At this time, I am seeing 1 request to speak here in Community Hall. And I see one hand raised virtually. Members of the public wishing to speak regarding this item shall submit a request to speak card in person at Community Hall or raise their hand virtually within the first 9 minutes of the start of public comment or before public comment period is closed, whichever comes first. So we'll move to in person now. Welcome, Jennifer.
Good evening, City Council. I'm all in favor of restoring the Legislative Review Committee. It's extremely important. I went to it regularly for the last number of years, and then it was cut off. That did encourage me to become a more informed citizen, resident of Cupertino. I started attending 3 different Zoom sessions for the last 4 to 5 years. Livable California, Our Neighborhood Voices, and Catalyst for Local Control, which is being reorganized. I will say not having access to the legislative review forced me to reach out to get the information that I was used to having as an informed resident of this city and state. I do not have a great deal of confidence in my elected officials at the state level at this point. Federal, we won't go there. The state, there will be some changes coming up with the new governor, and a certain senator will be running for another position, and I'm hoping that he will move on and not have so many housing bills. I will tell you that I want to make sure that the residents of this city know how their pocketbooks are being affected by legislation that is rolled out by our elected officials and evidently other cities' elected officials, namely Senator Wiener, that affect the whole state. And I'm talking about local control. What has happened since 2019 affects the pocketbooks of every Californian. We do not have the right to make decisions about what happens in our cities anymore, and I'm very sad about that, but I am determined to push back and make sure we regain that control. I am tired of unfunded mandates coming down from the state. Yes, federal, that's another drama. But I never encountered so many unfunded mandates coming out of, namely, the housing bills. We can't keep up with them. I want to know this information. Now, because I have no legislative review committee, I have to spend hours following the bills, SB 79, SB 677. What is Senator Wiener doing? Skinner, all these, I'm sorry, not Skinner, Buffy Wicks, et cetera, Southern California. I find LRC vital information. And yes, it will provide other things to other people, but it wastes my time not to have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, we'll move on to the request to speak virtually. We have 2 hands raised, San Rao, followed by Peggy Griffin. Welcome, San.
Good evening, Mayor Moore, Vice Mayor Chow, council member, speaking on behalf of myself only as a resident. I want to say, as I did when you started this again, that the LRC needs to be very, very carefully used. The council members run on a non-partisan agenda. You do not run as Democrats or Republicans. Once you get to policies at the state level policies are party-driven and are not nonpartisan. And you need to advocate for only the things that there is a clear voter mandate at the local level that is reflected by a majority of you on dais having run on those issues and having won on. And so when I see certain items in the red line draft here, that is over and beyond the mandate that you got as the 5 of you being elected on the campaign issues that you ran on. I look at things like EB5. EB5 is not an issue that any of you ran on. In case you're unaware, the second largest community that applies for EB-5 is the Indian community. The first largest is the Chinese community. And those are the two largest communities by demographic in Cupertino. So why would you support legislation that limits EB-5 to opportunity zones only, of which we have none in Cupertino? A number of the Indian community uses EB-5 to be able to lawfully migrate to the US, starting legal businesses that include a variety of other areas of investment that are not in opportunity zones. So I ask you to reverse the changes you're making on EB-5. Clearly, that makes no sense at all given the demographic of Cupertino. And that's not an area that any of you have any basis to represent Cupertino on. Once again, this goes back to your use of the LRC needs to be limited to things that you're supported by residents on as a majority, not as individuals. Likewise, I see a number of items here on the environment. I don't see three of you having run and one on environment, maybe one, but not three, and definitely not all five. And so this reads as a pet project list for maybe one of you, not the majority of you. So I'd ask you to revisit that. There's one item where you shifted the maintenance of roads from support to monitor, and I asked you why you did that. Because we are a community of road users. We are a community of families. We are a community that drives our kids around, and we do drive. And so we want you to support and advocate for funding for improving our roads, not just bike lanes. So I'd ask you to reverse that. Likewise, as I look through this list, I see and I do appreciate the addition of the on-campus student housing. I think that there was a sufficient mandate across at least three of you in support of those policies, and so do appreciate that. But I ask that you really treat with a sense of responsibility here. Thank you.
Thank you, San. Next, we'll welcome Peggy Griffin. Welcome, Peggy.
Good evening, Mayor Moore, Vice Mayor Chow, council members and staff. I support reinstating this committee, and I look forward to regular reports. I think that was missing before, and I had no idea what our lobbyists were doing or what they were advocating for. So having it up front where the residents know what the city is standing for and lobbying for, I think is a big step forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. And Mayor, that concludes the request to speak on this item.
Okay, thank you. So to address the issue on the use of the word monitor, which I think that's important to see, with regards to the EB-5 program, we used to be, it's kind of a long story, we used to be gerrymandered into a lower price investment area, which was inappropriate at the time, and that requires some research if you're interested in finding out more about that. So the use of the word monitor is to ensure that if legislation is looked at regarding that program, that it would go to the full council for a discussion rather than being decided by the LRC. And that's also the case with regards to the street and road funding. A lot of our funding is coming from Measure B 2016. That's a tax that we have. So I requested the word monitor be there so that we don't inadvertently support another tax without having a discussion of the full council on that. So it pretty much sums up how the word monitor got placed in there. That was something that the LRC has to stay within those lanes there, and I know that Astrid made sure and ensured that if something came to the LRC that wasn't within our allowable duties, if you will, that it would go to the council for a discussion, because there were things that weren't on this list that we wanted to talk about, and they would go straight to the full council. I do request that there could be a check to make sure that the now land use section, that those items are within the state legislative platform. I see much of it is in the housing and community development section, such as item 2, oppose legislation that may reduce municipal authority with the emphasis on land use policy, local review, and design standards. So that may encompass it. So I believe it's just titled something differently within the state platform. So where it's land use, this could actually come back with it modified with a separate section that's land use to mirror the federal platform. That might be clearer, as opposed to having this large housing and community development, or just add housing, community development, and land use, and just give it a slightly different title. And likewise, we can, if it's the council's wish, we can bring the whole platform back and have another look at it in 6 months if we see how things are working on here. That can be done as well. So, do I have a motion from any member of the council?
I'll make the motion to approve the recommended legislative the resolution and the platform, the recommended action, yeah. But I do want to propose some changes, though.
Second to move that along.
Okay, so the recommended action has 3 portions. One is adopt resolution to repeal and replace the 2023 resolution, which, and then adopt the legislative platform. And the third portion is assign Vice Mayor and Council Member Wang to LRC and the Mayor as an alternate. So that's the base motion. But I would like to ask for an amendment. I think my question earlier about local authority, I do not find it under the state legislative. I think that whole section probably should be moved to the state.
I wanted to clarify on page 9 under quality of life section, we have number 5. That opposes legislation that includes unfunded or underfunded mandates, which is under the state section. And then regards to land use, we have under housing and community development item 2, which exactly mirrors what's in the federal table. Oppose legislation may reduce municipal authority with an emphasis on land use policy. So if you believe there's others that are missing, we can definitely make that modification, but those 2 are the big ones that are in both the state and the federal section.
I see. But it feels like that federal section is clear, seems more suitable as a separate category under state.
We can make that modification for it to mirror on both tables. So I'll pull those from those.
All the unfunded.
Correct. Yeah, I'll just have its own section in both tables.
Okay. So any other amendment we need?
Mayor, I had a comment.
Yes, please.
Or a question. On page 3 of your Exhibit A, where the heading is Legislative Advocacy Policy. So in the policy statement, item number 3, it says, during the year, staff will monitor research pending legislation to identify the bills that could significantly impact Cupertino. With authorization from the Legislative Review Committee, city staff shall prepare position letters with the council-approved legislative platform for the mayor's signature. So my question was, when does the full council get to see these position letters, or do we see it at all?
Good question, council member. So if the position aligns exactly or mirrors exactly as stated in the platform, then that authorizes the LRC to take a position within their committee, and then the letter will be drafted based off the LRC's comments, along with the lobbyist and myself. It'll be sent to the mayor for signature, and then that will be sent forward to the legislature because it's been blessed by the council-approved platform. What we can do and what we were discussing was maybe informing council if these are the letters that have been sent. They usually are posted on our legislative website, and so that's what we were planning to do with that. Now, if a position does not align with the platform, then that whole discussion will be had here with the full council, and then we'll draft the letter based on all your feedback from that discussion. So blessing the platform is kind of you're taking it as saying this is good to go, and then the letters will be shown to all of you on our website. We can even include it in the city manager's weekly letter as an FYI.
Yeah, I'd like a sort of separate listing of the legislation that was approved. Even though we've blessed it, we often remember we don't remember what we blessed. So it'll be good to get that reinstated on a list. So thank you if you can accommodate that.
Yes, and there has been the website, and we still have the prior year's letters that were written and the support, and then I believe you also at the end of the year put what happened to that for each piece of legislation that we took a position on.
Yeah, we usually do a wrap-up memo that includes all of the activity that went through that year, and so that'll be a great place to look, towards October, of where we summarize the city took these positions and here's everything that happened. But yeah, everything will be on our website, and we can definitely summarize it and provide updates to you all as the year goes in the city manager weekly letter as an FYI.
And we also provided some educational opportunities there so that people could figure out if maybe the individuals have a different position or they want to support the position, and there's information on how to get to the portal so that members of the community can participate in the process as well. And I believe we'll be working to get some of our legislators to come to the city and let us hear what they are working on as well. Is that something we're going to have in the works?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. I know they came recently as well, right, to present. I forget if it was in January or December. They're very open and want to involve the community and you all as council, so that's definitely possible.
Right. So as a strategy, when you're reviewing the legislative platform, if you want to ensure something comes to the full council, as opposed to having a support or opposed position taken at the LRC level, and there's also another part in there where they can go support if amended, things of that. So they might have a different position on things, or anyway. So please, if there's something within the platform that you are not in agreement with, and you would prefer that the whole council would discuss it, then I would bring that up now. Councilmember Fruin?
So mine is more of a philosophical objection. I think that we meet often enough that if there are things that we want to take action on as a city, that we should at least discuss it at council or have the opportunity to do so, even if that means divided votes. I think that what we've been doing for the past year has actually worked fairly well. The LRC has whittled down what it is that might be of interest to the city, and then if there have been disagreements amongst council members, there's always been an opportunity, even on consent, to simply make the comment and then take a vote, and I think that is fine. I'm not okay with delegating authority quite this broadly to just 2 council members on this topic.
Understood. Vice Mayor?
Yeah. I think maybe providing updates on like a legislative report from Legislative Action Committee and put it on consent agenda might be good. That way all council member would get the update on, okay, what the Legislative Action Committee is considering or has considered. would maybe not as city manager report, but maybe just a subcommittee report. Right.
And would it, sorry.
Pardon, would that, the city manager, is that something that could be done through the liaison?
Yes, I believe that's a reasonable ask, and we can add that after as a subcommittee report.
Yeah, okay. Now, I see that there is support for Prop 36 funding, which is great, but could we add a little description for what is Prop 36? Many people probably don't know what exactly needs to be funded.
Certainly, I think maybe even by adding the title of Prop 36 might be a little bit helpful, so people know what it is.
That title a lot of times is of ballot measures. Yeah.
Okay, we can elaborate on that one.
Yeah, and another thing, under the community development, I didn't see anything on the RENA process. I think many cities, there was a bill last year that's trying to make sure that there is reliable or accountable RENA process so that the city doesn't submit our housing element and the HCD does have different rules for different city, which they don't specify even beforehand. But that bill was vetoed by the governor. So I think we need to continue to support bills that give city more, what's that word?
Local control?
So we, so the way, if we are putting in our good effort to generate housing element, they shouldn't punish the city. I'm not sure how to word that properly. But maybe we should at least monitor bills for that.
Pardon, Vice Mayor, if you find a bill that is under that heading, that can go to the council for discussion and just have a second person get it to agendized. It can work that way.
Yeah.
And then the next time we revise the platform, that could be added in.
Maybe we just add that we monitor legislation that might update the RENA process or the housing element process.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah.
So you're adding that to your,
To
you've already
the
made a motion.
Yeah.
Okay, and then your seconder?
Yeah, so there are two friendly amendments. One is we are moving the local authority or creating another section for local authority under the state legislative priority. And then the second friendly amendment is to monitor legislation regarding housing element process and or RENA calculation.
Okay, and does your seconder, that's Councilmember Wong, I believe, do you accept the friendly amendments?
I do.
Do we need to add that we will provide the subcommittee report to the council?
It's up to you if you want to include that in your motion, but I think I have.
Not necessary, right? Okay.
No.
Yeah.
Did we leave out adding the Prop 36 funding description?
Oh, yeah, Prop 36 funding description. That's the third one. But do you need a little more?
Apparently, that's adequate. So,
Yeah, that should
Councilmember.
be, I think we'll trust the staff to provide some description.
Okay, and Councilmember Wong, you accept that?
I do.
Okay, and do we have any further questions or comments from the council?
Yeah.
Councilmember Mohan?
Let me make one last comment. Is it possible to list all the action that the legislative committee has taken? And I think you said you would put it on the consent calendar. Would that be before we sent it, or before, or after you send it out?
So Generally, after the Legislative Review Committee meets and takes a position, again, if it falls under the platform, we would send the letter really quickly, maybe by the following week. So what I'm envisioning is a subcommittee report outlining a past, like what happened. So it'd be after the letters have been submitted.
Yeah. Mayor. So the agenda for Legislative Review Committee will be published. It's a public meeting. So if anyone wants to monitor that, they can subscribe to that agenda, right? And I envision the report from Legislative Action Committee likely will be pointing to the letters that's already published in the website and then link to them, but provide a summary of what have been considered and whether position has been taken or not.
Correct.
Or any recommendation for the council to consider any bills. Right.
Correct.
And we also want to see the number of bills that are being looked at so that this does not become a huge project. So I think that this past year, we had a very modest number of bills that we were looking at. I thought it was pretty reasonable what we were doing, and so that if that can be taken into account, and please let us know if you find that if the number of bills ends up being really quite enormous, that let us know about that, and we'll see if there's some other process that we need to add into this in order to keep it reasonable. So I'm not seeing any further hands raised. One more, Vice Mayor.
So it's a question, I guess. The Cities Association has a Legislative Action Committee, and the other council members from the other cities say that after their legislative priority is adopted, they will have a list of bills that they will recommend for the Cities Association to consider. So do we want that list? I assume that LAC will meet and then provide list we either monitor or support, oppose to the Cities Association. Maybe that would be included in the report if we make that recommendation.
Thank you for that. There were some other organizations that we had monitored through Gonzalez as well. So that could be put on the list. You want to know what they're looking at, and maybe Cal Cities having a summary of what their bills are. Or at least a link so that you can look at it. But I would assume that the Cities Association would be a shorter list. But I think that would be worthwhile.
The other way around, we will be recommending to them what bills to consider.
Well, you have the representatives, so it's Councilmember Wong, and you're the alternate to that. So that would certainly be something that you could turn in there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. And so with that, Madam City Clerk, will you please conduct the roll call vote?
Councilmember Fruin?
No.
Councilmember Mohan?
Yes.
Councilmember Wong?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Moore?
Aye.
The motion carries with Councilmember Fruin voting no.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we need to take a 5-minute break at this time, or shall we keep going? So we got nods. So we'll be taking a 5-minute break. So we'll reconvene at 8:01. Madam City Manager, is there a presentation?
Thank you, Mayor. So this item before you tonight is a continuation of prior council discussions regarding potential revenue measures. And as part of our ongoing fiscal planning efforts, per council direction, staff has evaluated the options that could provide additional long-term stability to city's financial outlook. And tonight's presentation is informational. The purpose is to review what the available tools are, to understand the trade-offs, and receive council direction on whether to pursue further analysis and potential next steps in advance of the November 2026 election cycle. With that, I will turn it over to Jonathan Orozco, our Acting Director of Administrative Services, to provide additional context and to introduce our consultant who will be presenting this information. Jonathan?
Thank you, Tina. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Moore and council members. As outlined in the staff report, Council previously considered revenue ballot measures but chose not to move forward in 2024. Since then, the city's fiscal outlook has evolved, including projected cost pressures beginning in fiscal year 26-27. At the January 13th meeting, Council directed staff to take a fresh look at the potential revenue tools and return with additional analysis. To assist with this effort, City engaged with HDL, who was asked to evaluate available revenue mechanisms, estimate potential revenue generation, outline voter thresholds, discuss administrative complexity, and assess overall feasibility. The goal was not to recommend a specific task, but to provide objective information to Council to determine whether further steps to move forward with, such as polling and public outreach, were warranted. I'd now like to introduce Ken Duran with HDL, who will walk through their analysis of the options available to the city.
So okay. Madam Mayor and City Council, appreciate this opportunity to present to you the report that we have been engaged in to provide you with some revenue enhancement opportunities. Just to give you a little bit of context as far as our organization, HDL has been around for over 40 years, providing revenue enhancements for cities. Personally, I'm a senior analyst and a former city manager. I've been with the company for 5 years. So we have engaged in looking at some of the revenue opportunities that we were asked by the city to evaluate. So, Jonathan, are you going to do the slide deck? So what we were looking at are 6 revenue opportunity enhancement opportunities for the city, including a vacancy tax, transactions and use tax, a parcel tax, business license tax, and business license tax for rideshare services. So that's what we evaluated during our evaluation. So what we looked at was describing a description of each one of those taxes, the implementation process for each one of those, some of the pros and cons for each one, and the potential revenue opportunities for each one of those. Next slide. So in all cases, each one of these taxes must be approved by a tax measure of the community. For general use taxes, which I think we're looking at for each one of those, it requires a 2/3 majority approval vote by the city council to place the measure on the ballot. And then in the case of approval, it requires a 50+1 approval for the voters of the community to approve each one of these taxes. Next slide. So here's the timeline. So if you're looking at a tax measure to go on the ballot in November, here's the timeline of the council's approval. The council must approve and submit a resolution to the county registrar by August 7th. And then, as you can see, during August, there's opportunities for arguments and amendments to the ballot measure, and then it would go to the registrar in October 5th for the November ballot measure. So let's get into the various opportunities that we evaluated. One was that your staff had looked at was a vacancy tax. Currently, there is no vacancy tax in Cupertino. There is a tax in Berkeley, Oakland, and San Francisco. There is a pending litigation on one of the taxes in San Francisco on multi-family dwellings. If we looked at the Oakland model, we would estimate that your generation for revenue would be about $1.4 million in annual taxes for this type of a vacancy tax. A transaction and use tax is a addition to your Bradley Burns sales tax. Currently, Cupertino does not have a add-on tax, but as you can see, there are several other cities around you that do have that. There is a cap on the ability to raise this kind of tax. You have about 0.25% to generate in annual revenue on this kind of tax, and that would generate approximately $5.4 million. One of the key factors, though, is that this type of add-on tax is not, it's based on not just your sales tax, but it's based on taxes where people come from outside of your community who pay that tax. And we estimate that about 28, almost 29% of your Cupertino PUT would be paid by non-residents. So that's a huge marketing factor when you're going to try and sell this tax to your community. So here is a listing of the TUT. There's other agencies that pay that have add-on taxes. That's some of those are the transit authorities and other agencies that absorb some of that. So that's why we get to the point where we only have about a 0.25% ability to increase your TUT in Cupertino. Another possible opportunity would be a parcel tax. And this is a flat tax on parcels for land use within your community. You currently do not have a parcel tax. San Jose does have a parcel tax for single-family homes. It's a little bit more difficult to pass because it's taxing your residents. And you have the ability to change the amount of how much you want to charge. We estimate that you could generate between, $435,000 to $20.5 million, depending on how you want to parcel that out. You can spread that out on residential parcels, or you can spread it out on commercial parcels. So that's why there's such a huge variation. So that is another opportunity that you have. There, you can increase your business license tax. You have a floor tax right now. If you increase that to a gross receipts tax, you might be able to generate between $2 and $10.2 million in additional revenue by increasing your business license tax. But again, it's taxing your businesses, and sometimes that trickle-down effect would mean that some of those businesses might pass on an additional tax to their customers. So it's a little bit more of a regressive tax than some of the others, but that is an opportunity that you have. We were asked to look at a rideshare services tax. The only way that you could incorporate this would be if you increased your business license tax. You can't really tax independently rideshare operators, but you can increase your business license tax on rideshare services. But that would mean, again, you would have to go to the vote of a vote of the people to increase that, and that could be based upon gross receipts of a rideshare tax. So, kind of in summary, each of these have different opportunities and different challenges. And as you can see, there are administrative costs for each one of these. There is some equity based upon some of these taxes for residents and businesses in your community. Revenue potential is pretty vast. So there are opportunities to adjust those based upon what your desires are. And then there is an administrative cost to administer each one of those. So I think you have our full report, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have at this time.
All right, thank you, Ken, very much for the report, and Jonathan as well. I'm going to open it up for questions, beginning with Councilmember Fruin. We'll follow the same pattern. Councilmember Fruin, do you have any questions regarding this report?
Yeah, I just was hoping that maybe, since I didn't see it in the presentation, that you could maybe go over the utility users tax, since this is one that I think we had identified as a need to perhaps continue, since it will expire, at least the one that we currently have.
Yeah, we didn't do a deep dive into that, but that is a opportunity that you have to extend that. To be honest, utility user tax voter approval is probably one of the more difficult opportunities because it is taxing your residents specifically. So we can, if we wanted to, we can actually give you a little bit more analysis as far as what the revenue opportunities are, but it is probably one of the least likely passable taxes opportunities for you.
I mean that more in terms of simply renewing the tax.
Yeah, it would be renewing the tax, and then you have the opportunity, if you want to expand the utilities that you charge. We can take a look at that because if you have a broader scope of what those utilities are, you can increase your revenue. So we can take a look at that. But we did not. That was not part of our scope of work.
I can add a bit more to that. As Councilmember Fruin, as you may know, the UUT is set to expire in fiscal year 2030, 2031. We knew kind of going into this that it is an option to pursue this. It wouldn't necessarily generate more revenue. It would just be a continuation of the existing tax. We have multiple opportunities to take this back to voters. If there is no desire to pursue any of these other options at this time, we can certainly put the UUT in the 2026 ballot, but we also have an opportunity in 28 and 2030.
I'll reserve the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you. Pardon, Councilmember Wong, I was supposed to call on you first. Do you have any questions?
I do, and thank you. I would say thank you to staff and HDL for putting this together. I think revenue is definitely a great place to look at opportunities. If we were to choose the least invasive approach to our residents and our businesses, what would that be? And then specifically, as we get to I'd say there's the equivalent of a ride-hailing tax or a autonomous vehicle tax or robo-taxi tax. Is that we can only do that through the business license as opposed to the individual drivers? Because I don't know how Uber does it today, but apparently I want to know how the mechanism works for the taxes that work in San Francisco for Uber rides.
So to answer your last question, it would have to be a part of your business license tax. So you would have to include that as part of your business license tax increase. Your first question, the maximum revenue generation opportunity is with a transit utility tax, transaction, TUT. That gives you the most revenue generation. And actually, when you look at your comparative cities around you, that's probably the tax that would be most palatable for your community. And as I mentioned, because of the non-resident opportunities, for almost 29% of your taxes for that kind of tax would be borne by non-residents. That's probably your best marketing strategy to do the TUT.
And do we have constraints on the cap for the TUT? I just want to make sure the public's clear.
Yes, you do. You only have 0.2.
The quarter, right?
Yeah, quarter percent.
Okay.
Yeah, there is an opportunity for you to go to get legislative relief for increasing that, but that's another layer of process that you'd have to go through.
And to be clear, just so that people understood what happened, those that supported Measure A, that tax, that's part of the cap limit that we have.
Right, exactly.
Because of Measure A. We kind of dug ourselves a hole by supporting Measure A by not being able to capture that revenue for us and allowing it to go straight to the county to be used however they choose. Would that be a fair assessment?
Actually,
Yeah,
no.
so that one slide that I presented showed you kind of, all of the county measures that kind of add up to that cap. So that's
right. They've usurped our cap is basically what happened. So.
If I may, can you project the video? Can you put the slide back on?
Oh, and I reserve the rest of my.
Measure A is actually an exempt from the cap, the 2% cap. And so this 0.625% does not affect the 2% cap that the city can tap into, along with what's being proposed and possibly in the 2026 ballot for the public transit revenue measure.
right. There are some exemptions to that.
And
Yes.
those are those
You're
last three columns that you're seeing there.
Yes.
So if you take the sum of the column 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, you'll get to 1.75%.
Right.
It's a lot. Thank you.
Next, Councilmember Mohan.
I think I asked this question last time we spoke, Jonathan, about the utility users tax. It expires in 2030, and we have an option to renew it in 26 and 28. 2030 would be too late, I suppose. And what is the advantage of doing it earlier or at the late 26 or 28? Is there an advantage?
There would be, in that we would have our forecast would project out a more definite source of revenue. At this point, in 2030, 2031, we're not banking on that revenue source. However, the year before that, our COP bonds will mature, so we will no longer have that debt service. So it's almost a wash.
So in 2030, the COP debt goes away.
Correct.
And then this one expires as well.
The following fiscal year, correct. And so you don't see a large drop off in our forecast if you compare it to previous forecasts in our budget books or our mid-year projections. And that's due to the trade-off or essentially the wash between our debt service and the loss of the UUT.
Okay, so getting back to my question, is there an advantage to putting this on the ballot in 2026?
The advantage would be to secure future funding of revenue and have a more, advantageous or a better outlook in our forecast in those out years.
Okay, so it's not really securing additional revenues, right?
The city won't have an immediate benefit as far as those revenues won't necessarily increase in fiscal year 26, 27. it would just be as part of the forecast for fiscal year 2030,
Right.
2031, and the years thereafter.
Because regardless of when we do it, it only, if it passes, it takes effect in 2030.
Correct. Well, the continuation, if it's structured and that the city would just like to continue the UUT, certainly that's what we would pursue. However, should council want to modify it, as Ken had said earlier, to either include additional utilities or a different rate, that's certainly up to your discretion. However, cities, we're just providing the information. We're not necessarily making a recommendation at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. So first about UUT, my understanding is Santa Clara is getting a lot of UUT because of data centers that they use a lot of electricity. And so I suppose renewing might be easier to pass than if we delay it, didn't pass, and then it will be, if we let it expire, it will not be a renewal, right?
From my understanding, generally extending a tax is much easier to pass than
if we do it in 2030, it's still like renewing because it ends in 2030.
That is correct.
Okay, so I do wish to get more information about what other cities have in terms of UUT, what percentage they charge, and what type of utilities they include. I assume electricity, gas, and how about now we have clean energy? Are those included? And what other utilities? I have no idea. So if we can have more information. And also for business tax, my understanding is Santa Clara, they have a huge surplus this year, I'm told. And also because they have employee-based tax or gross receipt. I don't remember. I think Mountain View has gross receipt, Santa Clara. So if we have information about what other cities have, because our concern is whether we are competitive compared with other cities. And if other cities do have business tax based on gross receipt or employee-based tax, that will be helpful. And when I talked to Santa Clara mayor, she said that they did this by first talking to their largest employer to get their buy-in, and then compared with their revenue, the increase in tax really is a very small amount to them. So I do want to know what we are compared with others. And rideshare tax, I think a city, Santa Barbara or San Bernardino, their rideshare tax was passed, but it was challenged. So could that, was that resolved?
I'm unsure
Yeah,
if it's
there was
resolved, but from my understanding, Ken, can you go to?
Yeah, actually it was Santa Barbara, and it was actually, there was litigation that was resolved. So it is allowable, but again, it's part of your business license tax, so it would have to be part of that.
So what does that mean? That means anyone who takes a ride into or out of Cupertino will get charged an extra percentage?
If you adopted an ordinance that allowed for that, then they would pay a specific tax for that. But you would have to, and again, that would be a tax measure that you would have to have adopted by your residents.
Yeah, I know, but how would that be calculated? And who will be paying it? The operator, would they charge a different fee based on whether destination or beginning point is from Cupertino or not?
Yeah, it would be the rideshare operator that would be paying the tax, because it would be a business license tax on the operator. And the city could decide how much they want to charge the operator for that tax. So
Also, it's not based on per ride.
it's based on gross revenue. So it's based on the revenue generated by the operator.
So they will need to report how much revenue they
Right.
generate in Cupertino
Right.
related travels.
Right. It would be a very difficult, I mean, you can do it, but it would be a very difficult tax to monitor and collect because you would have to actually go through every operator and determine how much their revenue is. So you can generate money from it, but in my opinion, it would be a very difficult tax to administer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Then in terms of TUT sales tax, so I'm trying to understand. So if I go to a San Jose restaurant, they are charging 0.25% extra for me going to their restaurant. But if they are coming to a Cupertino restaurant, we are not charging that 0.25% today, right?
That is correct.
So that's, and so then I understand that the county was able to raise the sales tax because they got actually a state legislation passed in 2023 to allow them to go beyond the cap. And that was, otherwise they wouldn't be able to do it. However, if VTA is considering putting on another sales tax measure, so this is what I have always heard every time this is on the agenda. So if the VTA passed a measure that to raise the 0.25% tax to reach the cap, and San Jose is already over the cap, I think Milpitas and Campbell also. So their residents would not pay that 0.25% extra to VTA, but Cupertino resident would pay that 0.25% to VTA. Is that correct?
It depends on the tax. If you're referring to what would be the last column in the slide here, where it's the public transit revenue measure district, that 5.5% is exempt, so it would be over and above what is collected. However, if they're trying to tap into part of the 2% cap, they would be limited to the...
Could you show the slide?
Beauty. Thank you.
Public transit.
So if it relates to that last column, right, so that 0.5%, that is exempt from the 2% cap. So if there's another city that's already reached the cap, they would also receive that 0.5%, regardless if they're at the cap or not.
Oh, so the ballot measure they are considering is 0.5%. So you are saying San Jose, Campbell, they will have to add 0.5% to their current sales tax.
In this particular measure, yes.
In this particular measure, it's set up in that way.
Correct.
That all the cities will contribute fairly.
In this situation, yes.
But if there is another measure that's not set up in that way, so exempt from contribution 2%, if it's not exempt, then we will be paying more than other cities.
That is correct. If it hasn't gone through legislature and been provided that exemption, the city could pay for that, or would not be able to tap into that 0.25%.
Oh, so the exemption has to be provided by the legislature.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Could you stay back on that slide, please? Okay, so I believe out of the state base sales and use tax, that 0.25 of the 7.25 is automatically going to the county. I would like to know if that could be verified. So when I look through here on these columns, so you've got, I believe is a 0.25 in the first column, and then the county receives the retail TUT of the 0.125 in column 5. And then the county also receives the 0.625 from Measure A. So when I was doing the calculation, I ended up seeing that the county is now getting 1% of our sales tax. So I'd like to have that checked offline. That would be helpful. And then at some point, I'd also like to see the Santa Clara Valley the transit district funds for what's going to VTA get broken out too, so that we have that information with regards to the public transit revenue measure district, 0.5% that they're requesting. And then there's also on the other side, there's the property tax issue for how much VTA gets and how much the county gets, which that information is not, so I'm really glad to see this chart, but this information is not that easy to find and have it compiled so that a city, and it almost seems by design, so that a city can tell how much of their money is going to each one of these places. So that's one of my asks for the budget this year, is that we have a little bit more on those graphics. I think it'll help people when they're considering these things. So if we were, in the staff report, it mentions the sheriffs and the 0.36, the 36% increase. If we were to have any of these tax measures be specifically for the sheriffs to try to provide for that that increase, that would then put us at a 2/3, correct?
Correct. It would, for special use funds, it would require 50+1 from City Council and a 2/3 vote by the voters.
Okay. So in some ways, we're almost in the same position as the county with regards to their saying that their Measure A was for the hospitals, but then they have to say otherwise, that it's really a general fund and it's going to help all of these departments. So I just want to make sure that if it would be for the general use of funds, which, how does that, I think someone could say, well, you told us it was because of this 36% rise. So is that an issue?
If I can, yeah. So if you, for a TUT, that would be for general use funds, and the city could declare however they wanted to use those. The parcel tax is the one that's the most restrictive, that you would need to actually specify what the special purpose was for those funds. So if you went with a parcel tax increase, then it would either be for general use or special use. But if you went with a TUT or a business license increase, then the council can designate, because that's general fund money. So you can designate how you want to use those monies, and those would be for general use purposes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. So why don't I present a predicament that I've been thinking about and see if you have any suggestions for it. And that is that we have a lot of development coming to the city, and it will need more sheriff time. And it's pretty likely that the property tax that we'll be getting from the new assessed value will not cover the cost of the infrastructure and the sheriff time that we will need. Do you have some suggestion for how to make that fair to the rest of the community, having a huge influx of new residents and office space, and in some way to help mitigate that problem?
Again, we're not making any recommendations, but I think your TUT revenue source is your most flexible opportunity. And that would allow you to use those general fund dollars for however you want to spend those. Or if you wanted to increase your business license tax, that would also give you the most flexibility as far as how you use those funds.
Okay, it just kind of seems like logically a square footage tax would be more fair to handle that issue of a large development happening.
And again, I would kind of defer to staff as far as what their thoughts are as far as, how that might be applied.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think at this time we're going to go to public comment. Madam City Clerk, do we have any members of the public present or online who would like to comment on this item?
Mayor, at this time, I'm not seeing any request to speak in person in Community Hall for this item. I do see one hand raised virtually. Just a reminder for anyone wishing to speak on this item shall submit a request to speak or raise their hand virtually within the first 9 minutes of the start of public comment or before the public comment period is closed, whichever comes first. So at this time, welcome, San.
Good evening, Mayor Moore and Vice Mayor Chow and council members. I wanna say it loud and clear. We do not have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. We will oppose this if you take it to the ballot. We will defeat this if you take it to the ballot. We have done that with CUSD before, and this will just end up with egg on the face for those that propose this. And moreover, at least 2 of the 3 of you that may be in support of this may not be running. So I don't know if the other 2 support this. So you should certainly do a test of the council members that are coming up for re-election to see if they support this. And I can assure you that everyone that campaigned for you will oppose this, and we will make sure they will oppose this. So if those running for re-election oppose it, and those campaigned for you oppose it, I don't know who supports this. What this is really about is a spending problem, and you're avoiding the problem by not putting it on the agenda. You need to put on the agenda a review of our costs of staffing. Our biggest cost is healthcare and pensions. We need to transfer non-essential headcount into contract workforce so we stop paying that healthcare and pension. We need to close open unfilled recs, and we need to stop entire departments that are non-essential. We've got a transportation department that just loves to do bike lanes. Despite the 60,000 residents that don't want these bike lanes, we keep getting bike lanes. And all we get is more bike lane projects. We see the end of year report and all we see is bike lanes. So why don't we just reduce the entire transportation department and hire contractors to just do signal and road management who will actually do what we want? And so let's please put on the agenda as early as possible a review of the workforce. Let's start the cuts now. You're not going to pass this. Thank you.
Thank you, San. Mayor, that concludes the request to speak on this item.
Okay, thank you. Would any council member care to make a motion on this item?
Mayor, more question?
Please, Vice Mayor?
Okay. If we put any major on the 2026 ballot, how much is the cost?
To contract with a consultant that would assist us with polling, community outreach, development of legal language, we're looking at somewhere around $150,000 to $200,000. And to put it on the ballot, we're looking at about another $150,000, and that is based off of historical costs. So a total of $300,000 to $350,000.
So for example, if we would like to consider, say, 0.25% sales tax for public safety, we will be doing a polling first to find out if there is appetite for that, and then community outreach, and then it will come to the council. Then we may decide to put it on or not.
or
That is-
percentage?
That is correct. So the city staff would reach out to 2 interested consultants, execute a contract with them, so a phased approach. So first conduct polling, return back to council with its findings. If council desires, we can continue with onto the outreach and additional work with the public. And so as we're moving along, there's going to be points in time where council will have some input. And at any given time, should council desire to abandon its efforts, we can certainly do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So question on we have very affluent residents, and their income tax goes to federal government and the state government. They pay $0 to the city, except maybe their property tax, right?
Sales taxes, there's
Sales
a
tax.
1% Bradley Burns.
If they purchase in the city.
Correct.
Okay. And then we have a lot of businesses, and many of them, if they are a licensing model or they do provide services on salons, there is no tax on those services, right?
Typically, what you would see on services that are rendered to customers are tax-free. It's usually on goods, right, that are non-taxable goods. So food or cold food or groceries, you would not pay taxes for the most part, and with the exception of few.
So if a company license something to another company, it's not a sale. If they hire a consultant to do a certain work, it's not a sale. Then the city doesn't get anything.
Correct. And generally, no.
Yeah. So for business, the city currently only charges maybe $75 per business, regardless how much income they generate.
In terms of business license?
Yeah, in terms of business, how much are we charging right now?
I believe it's $180, $190.
Per business.
Correct.
Even if they might be making billions.
Yes and no. It depends on the nature of the business, right? Some of them, if they have an actual presence in the city, so physical presence within the city, there is a square footage that is added onto the license. So if you, let's say, Home Depot, right? So if they have...
Do I have maybe like an average number that a business pay per business? Do I have an average number? You can get back to me later. I'm just curious. Because I do want to find out how much other cities are collecting in total for their business tax per business compared with our business in average. So we know whether we are comparable. Because the sales tax, the model that's used in California is different from other states, where they might charge for services, licensing, all these things. Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other further questions, or would someone like to entertain a motion? Councilmember Mohan?
Thank you. A question for Ken. In your experience, isn't it true that if some of these new taxes that we could potentially levy would be charged back to the customer? I'm looking at the transactions and use tax, the business license tax, the ride share tax.
Yeah, obviously there is the trickle down effect for any of those, especially those that are imposed on businesses. And it's up to the individual business whether they want to trickle down their costs to the consumers. So, they are regressive in nature, obviously. But that's the nature of any taxes.
Right. So that direct association would not exist for a parcel tax, for example, or for utility users?
Well, utility users tax, it could be, because if you're taxing your businesses for utilities, they could actually be passing those costs on. So, and even parcel taxes, if you're increasing your parcel tax on businesses, so those are all going to be trickle down to, the consumers at some point. It's hard to say how much of that will actually occur, but the reality is that it would occur.
Okay, so the point is that whichever option we pick, it has an impact on the resident or the someone living in the city.
Ultimately, yes.
Yeah, ultimately.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm not seeing anyone entertaining a motion on this particular item. Is there more information that we're interested in getting?
Mayor.
Yeah, Vice Mayor?
So, I think I do need more information, and I think we don't want to put burden on our businesses, especially small business. And I do know that there are other cities, when they consider either gross receipt or employee tax, there could be a cap so that you protect smaller business. But I do want to know whether we are comparable with other cities before we consider anything. Because we know that public safety, for example, the cost, we provide transportation infrastructure, the public safety, making a very good business environment for business to choose Cupertino. But all this comes at a cost, and that cost cannot be covered just by property tax. So how we do need to consider, we are providing all these services, are the business contributing to the services we provide. So I do think we need more comparison with other cities for the business tax, and like UUT, I don't know whether our percentage that we charge is comparable with other cities also. So, yeah.
Madam City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to highlight that some of this comparative analysis might take a lot of staff time. We can try to get you some general information as we find, but it's hard to compare even with city to city because our business environment can differ from each other. So if this is direction from council for staff to look into and take a deep dive into getting this comparative analysis, I just want to share that it will take a little bit of time.
Yes.
So if other cities have recently considered some type of business tax, I'm assuming they would have done some comparison. If we can maybe get some reports from that. And then I'm also interested, maybe it's just ballpark, what's their total business tax revenue versus the number of, not total business, the number of large enough business that's being charged at an extra, some, maybe if those two numbers will give us some idea the average tax per major business.
Councilmember Wong?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to follow a line of reasoning that Vice Mayor Chow's headed. If one of our goals is to be the most attractive place for businesses and the most attractive place for residents, one could take a different tack, which was not have the highest taxes. and advertise that and push that. And that actually might generate more revenue as opposed to trying to get the revenue and causing a situation where businesses flee. Not that they're going to flee that many, but they're going to leave or they look at that as a consideration. And so it's probably part of a larger strategy to have that comparison information. I, in general, really do not want to put any burden on taxes onto our residents. I think that is unfair. And I do, to some degree, believe that there is a lot of cost to take out. And I know that we're running lean already today, but I think there's a lot of cost in areas in projects where residents really are not pushing for those. They seem to be pet projects. And I think there's a good number of those that are in the millions that probably could be eliminated. And so we haven't done a cost analysis and a cost reduction analysis. And we're looking at a revenue generation analysis before a cost analysis. And I think we need to look at both of those things holistically.
Thank you, Councilmember Wong, and I tend to agree with you on that. I'm hoping that we can provide some direction for staff. I think that as we move forward with the sheriff's contract and we see how that situation is going along, that might help inform what we're doing. I think it might be important to keep this door open because we do have a schedule to meet in case there is, that we determine once we've looked at the budget, once we looked at the mid-year report, and any potential cost savings measures that we can do, whether it's eliminating projects, that may be where we're headed. But I don't think we should completely shut the door on this in case we do need to put something on the ballot this fall. I think that would be kind of a danger if we completely drop this and we don't bring it back, and then find out later that we're too late and we actually really do need this. Councilmember Fruin,
Yeah, I want to echo sort of this notion of growing the pie so that the percentage that you're already getting that is lower and more competitive will produce more revenue in the long run. I think that's the sentiment that's being expressed here. I also just think that the appetite in general in the public that feels rather strained is not conducive to passing really any tax at present unless there is a really compelling reason behind it. I do think that ongoing services from the sheriff is potentially a compelling reason. I just don't think that that's likely to translate into a traditional parcel tax. And, in the course of our exploration of a joint powers authority or some other type of thing, if there's a special district that could help fund that in the same way that our, fire service is funded, I think that might be something that would be more well received by the public and would be something worth looking at. I will just reiterate some disappointment that there wasn't more information on the utility user tax, if only because the direction that we gave at the last time that we had this underscored the importance of eventually renewing it and trying to make sure that our outlying forecast in the years to come is not going to create a stronger structural problem for us. But I will certainly say I don't think that 2026 is likely to be the year, primarily because of how strained everyone is feeling. And it seems like every day I'm fielding a complaint about a water bill or an electrical bill. So this might be a uniquely bad time for that one.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Mohan.
My recommendation would be to bring this back at a later date. I know March 3rd is when we're doing the second quarter budget update. And maybe at that point, we could have a further discussion of what it looks like, not just for this year, but for next year as well in terms of budget. And unless we know the extent of our deficit, and unless we've explored every other option, I don't think we should put anything on the ballot. But I think maybe April, May, June timeframe would be good to bring this back and look at it again in case those other numbers don't pan out.
City manager?
Yes, I just wanted to add this, and I might have a little bit of good news here. When I was saying that it will take a lot of staff time, which is true, but it sounds like we actually have some of that information that through one of our consultants in the past, the UFI. They did an analysis for business operations tax and listed the cities and the annual revenue per capita. So we have that, so we can. I got a little scared if we needed to do that right away, but looks like we have that. We can share that with council again.
If we bring this back at a later date, could you suggest when that would be appropriate?
Jonathan, do you, since you'll be doing the bulk of this work, any suggestion on timeline?
My concerns is if we wait too long to get this information back to you, we'll miss the window. I know we were discussing earlier as far as a deadline in October, but that's just for council to approve the language and take it back. So the window in order to do the polling community engagement is going to be very short. It is already short as it is now. If we were to delay this longer, wait, maybe, let's say the second meeting in March, it'll be very difficult to do that public engagement and polling and still meet it. I would have to reach back out to our consultants, our interested consultants, and see if that's still even a possibility.
We could direct to do polling at this time.
That's right, Mayor. Council can direct staff to continue with that.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Just wondering, in terms of timeline, how much time it will take to get, you said 2 consultants, and how much time it will take to do the polling and community outreach, and what is the ideal timeline? For example, polling outreach should be done by June, and when the council make a final decision on whether to put it on or not, and we may finance the ballot language at that before August, but maybe what's the ideal timeline? Then that means the ideal timeline will be we should start polling and outreach by what time? And then that means we should give direction to engage with consultants by what time? That might give us better idea.
So based off of UFI's previous, so this is the report that was provided in the January meeting and back in 2024/2023. It looked like it took about 2 months to conduct the polling and get that information compiled together and present to council. So if we were to move forward with general direction to conduct the polling, we can probably return back in May with what was provided, what the results were, at which point we can either move forward or if there's a desire from the public, or at least there's an appetite. Otherwise, we can just stop there. If I remember correctly, we're looking at about $40,000 to conduct this polling. Again, that's rough numbers. The numbers will increase with more public outreach, any kind of information that's sent out, whether that's postcards or flyers or active calls.
I have a question for the city attorney. Could we continue this item to the March 17th meeting after we've heard the mid-year report? And then,
Absolutely, yes.
okay, is that something that any of my fellow council members would like to consider?
Yes, I would.
And then we will have more information about comparison data with other cities, so we know where we stand, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I move that we continue this meeting to the, this agenda item to the March 17th. What was that? That we continue this item to the March 17th, 2026 agenda.
But we do need to have more information at that meeting,
Yeah,
Mayor.
do we want more direction on maybe 2 things to focus on to get information?
Would that be added to the motion to continue?
I think yes, you could add that to the motion to continue and narrow the scope of the item for that date.
Okay. Vice Mayor, do you have some?
Or give direction now without necessarily narrowing the scope, but give direction on what you would really like to hear about at that time.
Okay, so we would like some additional information, and Vice Mayor, do you have?
I would like more information on the business tax and the UUT, so we know whether our percentage of UUT is comparable.
Okay.
So
Councilmember?
that's true. But for sales tax, I do want to know what's the appetite of spatial tax for public safety, because I think that's number one priority in our citizens' mind. And so if there is a spatial tax on that, that would require some polling. But if we have that information, then the same information we don't have to do it this year, but maybe that's something could be used later. Or it could be like a polling for, in case we are increasing 0.25% sales tax, what would you be, what would you support to use that tax for?
Okay.
I
Vice
don't
Mayor?
know what other people think.
Some of those are kind of polling questions that we wouldn't have the answer to, but it could be refined in the next meeting.
Yes,
I did have one more comment, which is I think we need to know the extent of our budget problems before we can figure out how much we need in revenues, and that we don't have as yet. I don't know if the mid-year report will give us sufficient information to make a decision based on that, or is that a special meeting?
As part of the mid-year, we will be updating the forecast. However,
But that will be for this year, right? This fiscal year.
Correct.
Can we get a forecast for future years?
We will be getting a forecast for future years, so it's a new 10-year forecast.
Okay.
Seeing that we're still in negotiations with the county, it will be subject to change, right? Whether there is a phased approach or it's a full 36% that will be assessed or increased in fiscal year 26-27. So there will be some asterisks with that forecast. However, it will give us a good sense of where the city sits in the future.
So basically, you'll have more information at that point than you do now.
A bit more. Again, it's a moving target at this point.
Mayor, I'd like to clarify.
Hold on. A quick question. When we see this report for the March 17th meeting, when this item comes back, may we have some suggestions for reductions in that? So part of the request when this item came was to essentially demonstrate to us that we need to have this tax, but if there's a way that we can make reductions, be that in the CIP budget or like we did before with regards to hiring freezes and whatnot, I would like to hear that. I think the public would like to hear that as well. Council Member, Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I want to clarify. We were talking about what to narrow it down when it comes back, right? So I mentioned the business tax and the UUT, and so now if we want to still be open to a potential sales tax, then that should be three of them that we would consider. So I just want to, I'm not trying to do a polling question, just want to see if we are open to that when it comes back.
Yes.
Okay.
And I see Councilmember Wong, your hand's raised.
Yeah. I want to take a different tact. I would love staff to think of ways we could be more competitive than our surrounding jurisdictions for business. And instead of moving in the direction of figure out what revenue and what raises and taxes we can do, what can we do to attract businesses to want to be in Cupertino and choose us as everybody else is moving in one direction in terms of raising taxes? Maybe what we can do is figure out how to lower our cost structure so that we can be more attractive to drive revenue and pull from the other cities. So that's kind of my tact. I'm hoping there's some support to see what we could do to become the most competitive city in the region in terms of being able to start a business, sustain a business, and actually address the affordability issue without raising taxes. And so this includes revenue cuts. And if there are some taxes we want to do that have less regressive, if you want to do a utility tax, put that into the mix. But ideally, what can we do to be the most competitive city in the region?
Okay, thank you. Madam City Manager, do you feel there's enough direction for the March 17th meeting?
I've heard a few suggestions from the Vice Mayor. It would be helpful to get the motion read out one more time before you take the vote.
Oh, so did we have a motion?
To continue the...
No, I think the mayor mentioned that. Is that a motion? Initially, I think it wasn't a motion.
Move to continue to March 17th, 2026. That would be agenda item 7. And with the direction that we're providing for staff to have more information come back, which we've
on the 3 options that business tax, UUT, and sales tax.
Yes.
We'll continue to consider.
And also to look into reductions, be that reductions in the CIP budget or perhaps to staffing. It could even be programming perhaps. But with regards to what Councilmember Wong said, with an eye towards making Cupertino more competitive for attracting businesses. Does that capture it?
Yeah, that sounds good. Second that. So, but I do think that we need to take a serious look at staffing because it has increased while our population has decreased. Maybe there is good reason, but I think we should take a serious look at that. And that's as part of the next budget session. And then in terms of business attractivity to business, I do want to know, maybe this is something we can refer to the Economic Development Committee. When a business makes a decision on where they choose to locate their business, do they even look at the business tax percentage? Maybe there are many other factors they look at, and we need to find out what are they so that we know how we are in terms of attractiveness. So maybe this is something we can refer to the Economic Development Committee to consider. Do I add that as part of the motion? Or
I don't think you need to add that in part of the motion. I think it's a good idea. We can explore that.
Take that up. I think that's...
I say this as a joke. 90% of our businesses didn't even know they have a business license tax. So I'll be more interested.
So maybe they don't really care, but we do need to know what they care.
And our name, boy, especially with the TV show, the Cupertino television show starting, where you have a lot of name recognition, and for people, they see us on their phones all the time. I believe we've wrapped up this item. Madam City Clerk, will you please conduct the roll call vote?
Just want to confirm it was Vice Mayor who seconded.
Correct.
Okay. Councilmember Fruin?
Aye.
Councilmember Mohan?
Aye.
Councilmember Wong?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Moore?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Great. Now we move on to item 8. The subject is the Parkland ballot measure, mapping, zoning, legal review, and election considerations. Madam City Mayor, Madam City, it's getting long here. Madam City Manager, will you please provide a report?
Thank you, Mayor. It has been a long meeting, so you're okay. So this item, Jonathan can stay here as well for this one. It follows a study session in January regarding potential parkland protections and rezoning considerations, where council directed staff to return with additional information related to, as you said, Mayor, mapping, zoning consistency, legal protections under state law, and the logistical and fiscal considerations associated with placing a measure on the November 2026 ballot. So tonight's report summarizes this information. It outlines the consideration for council as you determine whether to move forward with the development of a parkland ballot measure. With that, I will turn it over to Jonathan Orozco, Acting Director of Administrative Services, for this item. I don't believe there's a presentation tonight, but...
I apologize to interrupt. I received a message from video asking to take a break as we are having some computers that are beginning to shut down and we're about to lose
How long of
Dias.
How long of a break?
How long of a break, video?
Shall I start with 5 minutes or 10?
Well, when we say computers are shutting down, what does that mean?
Let's do a 5-minute break at this moment.
Okay, so we're going to take a 5-minute break. We'll be back at 9:19. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for waiting through the technical difficulties that we've been having. So I move that we continue items 8 through 12 to our next regularly scheduled meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Mayor, do you want to state the reasons?
Due to technical difficulties, the system is not rebooting, so that we are unable to continue. We have a unrecoverable issue at this time. Madam City Clerk, will you please conduct the roll call vote?
Aye.
Sorry. Councilmember Fruin?
Aye.
Councilmember Mohan?
Aye.
Councilmember Wong? I'm not sure.
Oh, he may not.
He might have had
May
to.
not be able to join.
Okay. So Councilmember Wong is not on.
Saw our message and said, "Have a great night."
Okay.
Oh, okay.
We'll go next. Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Moore?
Aye.
Motion carries with Councilmember Wong absent.
Wonderful. I'm going to make one announcement. Please join us on February the 26th for the State of the City. We're going to have a wonderful taste of Cupertino food, so please come out and enjoy the evening. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.